Welcome to this month's Weaviate Air. We are so excited to have you here. So I'm Sebastian. I have a great crew in here. JP's here, Duda's here, Marian's here, but also we have a special guest, Richard Viskovskis. He taught me how to pronounce his name just before the call, and I already messed it up. Yay for me. So this is super exciting. Yet another episode, and we're so happy to always do those sessions. So just a bit of what was it called? Homekeeping? No, like a basically housekeeping. God, yes. So thank you all for watching and listening. It's really great to have you here. And then definitely give us a shout in the comments. Let us know where you watch from, and we'll definitely give you a shout back. Definitely, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you always know when Weaviate Air pops up and any other content that we are creating. Please ask questions as we go. And I always say the same thing. It's such a great thing that these sessions are live. Maybe you see this like with 5 seconds delay from when I say these words, but it is kind of like, let's say 5 seconds live-ish, where you can ask questions and react to everything that we say, that we do. If you like the demo that you'll be seeing later, share it with us or ask more questions, and I will share it with everybody else. And it's really great. So thanks for watching, and be part of the show. And so the agenda is as follows. So first, we will start with Richard as our special guest, who created a pretty cool project for a hackathon that he participated at. It's called Rig AI. It's an autonomous testing agent, but I don't want to spoil more about it than that. Actually, I don't know much more. It's going to be as exciting for you as it is for me. So Richard is going to show it for us. Next up, we will be talking about the Python client update. We're almost there with like the rewrite of the Python client. So, and we have like some really cool things to show for you. And if this is new thing for you, you're gonna love it. It's absolutely amazing. Then the autumn is coming. Hacktoberfest is almost here, and we will be participating. There will be some ways for all of you to kind of contribute and help us out. So why not? Duda is going to be at Latinoware, so we'll share a little bit of message around that. It's going to be great. And then at the end, what I'd like to try this time is answer maybe some community questions. So we do hear some questions from the community popping up on our forum or on the community Slack. So we'll handpick a couple of questions and maybe go over them, have a quick discussion. And that's kind of the idea. So yeah, just a reminder, please subscribe, and definitely thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And then let's get cracking. So our special guest, Richards, you participated in a hackathon. Tell us about it. Like, what was the hackathon? What did you do? Or introduce yourself as well in your own words.
Okay, so my name is Richards. I'm from Latvia. Currently, I am a second year bachelor student at Latvian University. And the hackathon was a super exciting opportunity, not only to dive deeper in AI, which was like one of the first experiences, one of my first experience with AI, but also to develop and work on the idea which I really love myself, which is the software development and the software testing. And this hackathon, which was organized by Lab AI, was especially very good for this, as it not only offered you a choice to develop many interesting solutions, but also gave you a wide range of tools you could try, you could learn about, and also play with. So that's the cool part.
Nice. Yeah, so I know you prepared like a little presentation to go over to kind of like explain. Should I share your screen?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Let's dive right in.
So yeah, the idea which I personally worked on this hackathon was the autonomous software testing agent, and my main motivation to do that because of my previous experience in development, especially backend and full stack development. So while working at a company, especially during internship periods as I'm a student, I had a really good chance to not only work on interesting tasks, but also to observe how were they evaluated, who reviewed my code, and all these aspects. And I came to the conclusion that the topic of software development and more specifically software testing is quite important, and the quality of the software is also really important. So there are a couple of things which I personally reviewed and observed is that understanding of code and the requirements are maybe one of the most crucial parts, and also the ability to explain to your development team colleagues how the code should work, what's the problem, why there are some things that don't work is also extremely important. So that's why I decided to participate in this hackathon and come up with a solution which would hopefully simplify this process of testing software, ensuring quality, and communicating it back to the development team. And here I would like to present you my overall diagram of how I worked with this solution. And you can see that currently, as this is only a hackathon project and I only started really recently, I focus on the main part, which is understanding the code, understanding the requirements, as I mentioned, which is essentially the crucial part here. What's the interesting point here is that we should be able to test the application from different perspectives. Not only how it works internally, like unit test or internal functions, but also how it works all together, combined. And how it would help developers, it would be automated. It will be able to include in your already existing infrastructure like CI or CD pipeline. It would also provide you with feedback and parts which you could potentially improve in your software. And one of my future ideas, which I also came up with during the hackathon and I discussed with several others, is that it should also be able to not only provide you feedback, but also give you improvements in the code itself and make those improvements. But today I would like to maybe talk more in detail about exactly these software requirements and code storage questions. So the software requirement specification, as I see it, is just a explanation of how this specific software should work, which we are interested to test. And currently, as we know, there are many different types of software requirement specifications, different formats, and it's not quite easy to consolidate everything and put it in one place. So what I'm currently working on is trying to come up with a one or more of standardized way how this tool, this software testing agent, would understand and parse the requirements into something more usable. And the current approach I use for things like PDFs or text files is converting them to more readable formats like Markdown, splitting into smaller chunks, and also saving to Weaviate so that we can build our knowledge base with it and also use it later. And the cool thing with Weaviate is that it already provided me in the hackathon this infrastructure and great support so that I can do it much more easier. With the code base, it's quite a similar situation. We are also interested in understanding the code fully, which means not only understanding the concept, the context of some specific code parts or some specific files, but understanding detailedly what are the code structures we see in each file, like classes, functions, methods, and etc. So the typical workflow how I would do this is get these files from the either version control system or get those from locally, then split them into smaller parts, as I said, which are basic structures of the language, and again store them in the Weaviate vector storage for the easier and more efficient retrieval. And when we have already prepared both software requirement and the code base knowledge bases, we can work forward and combine them. And combining it is also one quite challenging aspect. There are several approaches we could take here, but personally during the hackathon, I outlined maybe the two approaches. And the one which is the most simple and the most basic is going through the software requirements knowledge base and searching the relevant and the appropriate places in the code where these requirements are implemented. This will not only ensure that all the code which is in requirements is implemented in real life, but it is also a good option and a good way to ensure that our application, our testing agent has all the necessary context about the application we are willing to test. And when we have this information, we can pass it to LLM for the further test case generation. The other approach, which I would say is more suitable in cases when we are maybe interested in testing only one part of code or ensuring more that specific feature of the code is implemented, is when we start with looking at the code files which we are changing or we are working on, and then finding the appropriate requirements which define how these concrete exact places should work. And as well, when we get this, we also pass it forward to generate the test cases. So I will show in a short period of time my current demo, proof of concept, and but the main challenges I personally encountered during this hackathon and also currently when I continue to develop this idea was first of all the requirements and code management. How do we ensure that we split those things into like really meaningful parts? Like we split the requirement document into features where each feature belongs, as well as code. How do we split it so that it's more readable? Of course, in hackathon, due to the lack of time, maybe I used not the most efficient techniques like storing everything into just one file. But for future work, it's important to consider these questions. As well, I experimented and tried different embedding models and prompts, and I'm also currently doing that to find like the optimal or maybe a more efficient way. How can we like vectorize and also embed the information we have from the code and the software requirements? And of course, there are more technical challenges like creating the whole infrastructure, for example, from A to B, how we go from the code and software requirements to the fully working tests and feedback providing to the development team. These are more technical questions, and these are those which I would like to work afterwards. I find out the answers to these main questions. And now I would like to show a short proof of concept which I came up with. So here it is. This proof of concept is essentially takes a small portion of code. This is a very simple code. It's just like calculating basic mathematical calculations with some variables and some rules of what should happen if the provided input is not in correct format.
Hey, Richard,
Then,
just one sec. Could you zoom in a little bit? Like if you do
yeah,
like,
sure.
yeah,
I hope
that's perfect. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, great. So about this is about the code. I also share this link with later so that you can access and view this proof of concept. But then I provided the software requirement specification exactly for this code, which specifies how each function, for example, calculate discount price or calculate square area should work. What are the input? What are the output values of this? This is like, you can imagine it like a default template for a software requirement specification. Of course, in the full version, we would see something like a combined version. It would be both textual formats, maybe some requirements are in the project management software like Jira, these Jira tickets, how it should work. But for now, it's just like this. And this is the output, the test cases in text format, which we can see here specifically for the calculate discount. And as you can see, for such a simple function, there are quite many quite detailed these test cases which it generates. And there are also the generated unit tests. In this example, I use unit tests because it's more easier to demonstrate. But we can see that it generated for each the test case described in text. It also provides us with the actual unit tests. In a more production-like environment, I would like to include not only unit tests, as I said, but also more advanced tests like integration, E2E, functional tests, so that we can look at this solution or this program for different perspectives to generate like a really detailed and high quality feedback to our development team. So that's shortly it from me. If you're interested in the hackathon solution which I worked on, you can follow this link. It's also provided in the proof of concept repository. So thank you for having me, and let's connect.
Perfect. This was such a great overview. And by the way, we've shared already one of the links in the description of the video. So if any of you want to see it, it's there. So this is definitely great. I really love it. Like, so it really like explained to me quite a lot. Like when you went like, hey, this is my description of the requirements, and then you just generated code from that. That is so cool. And did you run that code yourself to verify that the unit test passed?
Actually, when I run this code, I also run the previous hackathon code. Of course, there are like maybe some little changes if we look at this like here. For example, this my module would not exist because I did not specifically define it. But conceptually, all these test cases, they are taken from the PyTest PyTest function PyTest testing module. So technically, they should be able to run. So but as it is a demo, I'm still working on making it more quality, and also evaluating the result it provides to me, so that there are no weird outputs with test cases which don't run.
So
Nice.
I have a question as well. So would the from a user perspective, I would say, right? So would your agent tell the development team if they missed out on some specifications, for example, or what would be like the business goal for, I would say, if you have a development organization and somebody is writing the specs and another team is writing the code, would the developers get insights in where they missed out on certain specs, or is it mainly about writing test cases if the code they provide is actually working properly?
So the idea here was that I would show maybe quickly back to my diagram, is that I would like to provide also this feedback, sending not only about the test cases, because it's possible that the teams already wrote the test cases, but it's also possible that it's just maybe some untested code. And the idea would be that it provides, maybe in form of a Jira or GitLab issue, maybe in form of an email. It provides back to developers not only how the tests performed or where they run successfully, which tests failed, which success, but also perform feedback improvement. You should improve the code here. This is the maybe ultimate idea of how it would work.
That's really cool, because I guess then you can test the I guess not evaluate tests, comparison specs, as to say, oh, maybe the test can cover these scenarios, in PyTest, right, when you have parameters and things like that, and provide feedback that way too, which automated tools these days can't really do, right, as far as I understand.
Yeah, that's why also partially why I wanted to tackle this this problem, because there are many great tools like GitHub Copilot which help us during the development time. They really give us good suggestions on how to write our code, but the important part is also ensuring that the second layer of evaluation, that after we maybe deploy or publish this application to some production, or like staging server, it evaluates again that everything is indeed working. So yeah.
Nice. Hey, so some words of encouragement from somebody watching us. So Bob says like very nice example use case, right? So hey, yeah, for anyone watching, definitely give Richard's GitHub repo a star. Like let's show some appreciation. Maybe we can get to double digits today or by the end of the week. That would be awesome. But yeah, I totally agree. It's such a cool use case. And immediately in my head also goes in like, how meta can we get? Could you add the specification for your code so that you could generate tests for this project? Have you tried that?
Oh, that's a really cool experiment. I have not tried that yet because I was a bit lazy and I didn't write specification. but the idea is that it should definitely happen. And as I already said, as I'm a student, I also have many school projects where I need to write some software and develop some simple applications. And I would definitely, I think it will be beneficial to test my code which I wrote there using this tool.
Yeah. You could go the other way, just write some code and then get a language model to write the specs using your code, pretend you had the specs all along and you're correct.
Yeah, yeah, that's also the case. Yeah, it's possible.
I was kind of thinking that it could also be an interesting test because some of those models can understand what the code is supposed to do. It's kind of like saying like, if I share this code with an LLM, like what would it say about the code? And then sometimes you go like, oh, you got exactly what I was trying to do here. Or sometimes you go like, oh, I didn't think about that maybe there's something about it. So yeah, there's so many interesting aspects of it.
Yeah, that's really great, and that's why I'm interested in actively collecting feedback about this, because it's many great ideas appear this way. Yeah,
hey,
absolutely.
I've got one more question. You mentioned you mentioned chunking in terms of your pipeline of things you had to do.
Yeah,
we get questions about chunking quite a bit in terms of ingesting longer bits of longer quantum of information, right? And deciding what chunker to use in terms of how to chunk information, whether it's like by size or by some sort of syntactic markers or what have you. How did you choose to do it, and did you experiment with different chunking methods and sizes?
The first thing, like the simplest which I did during the hackathon, was just placing like a large document, maybe chunking by pages. Just one page is one chunk. It's very basic, but this was the fastest. Then what I did with the software requirement specification was chunking either by paragraphs, like each paragraph is a separate chunk, or trying to make maybe this by markdowns, somehow splitting them by headings, subheadings, and each of these subheading is a separate chunk. But then there is a question how do we ensure that all the functionality which is expected in this specific requirement is covered in this one chunk? And also maybe we should make on one feature several chunks, maybe if it's a very large feature. And about code, I mainly chunked by functions, for example. Like here, if it's a short function, I believe it's okay to chunk by function. If it's a really long function which takes many lines, then I would consider chunking by smaller code structures, maybe loops, conditionals, and so on. That's the approach, I believe.
That's a sounds like you've tried different things there, and that's really cool. And I think getting experience like that from someone like yourself who's built a real project and experiment or thought about different chunking methods and experimented is like really useful for listeners as well, because I've kind of found that there's not really a one size fits all answer for people. So it's really tricky to be like, just do this, just chunk it at 150 words. It's all good. But that's really useful.
Are you saying there's no one chunk fits all?
No one chunk fits all. That's exactly right. That's the challenge, and I'm really interested in also seeing how to chunk that, and currently trying to collect a team of students who are also interested in working with it, and we are discussing many different approaches this can be solved. So that's cool.
Awesome. And if you would love to hear back from you, whether it's through the community forums or Slack or whatever, if you kind of experiment with different sizes and what works, I'm sure we can work on some, follow-ups, whether it's a blog or something, because I'm definitely working on some chunking related material for our audience as well.
Okay, that's great. We'll be really happy to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, this was great. This we started on a strong. Let's keep up the tempo and the rhythm. This was an amazing demo, and I'm really looking forward to see what you build in the future, or maybe what's your dissertation project. That you can deal with it. That'll be awesome. So next up, it's a topic that I feel very passionate about. Personally, and for anyone that joined just now, because some of you joined a bit later and everything, this is a live show. Drop us a comment, questions, anything. Feel free to ask. We will share the stuff that you ask us, or maybe some of the comments that you share, and then we could always respond to it. So this is great. So on the topic that I feel very passionate about to come back to is the Python client update, and then, to be honest, like when I joined Weaviate, like I immediately fell in love. Like I thought Weaviate was great. It allowed you to do amazing things in a really like a short period of time. But there was always something that was like nagging at the back of my head, that whenever I interacted with like our clients, like especially the Python client, I always felt like we could do better. We could make it easier. We could make it more straightforward. So that was like that little nagging kind of grew into something bigger. And then there was some community feedback, but also some internal feedback that we had. And eventually we kind of got to the point. I was like, hey, listen, let's stop that nagging feeling, of Sebastian and many other people around, and then let's do something about it, right? So we went onto our project, and there's 4 people involved, like to the biggest extent. So JP is one of them. It's me. Then we have Dirk and Tommy from the engineering team. So we kind of went in like, hey, let's rewrite some of the Python client parts, and we came up like this different concepts. And so the long story short is like, can we go from like, let's say 5 lines of code to run a query to maybe a 1-liner or 2-liner or something, or make it a lot more readable, but also could we make it more like IDE friendly? So like you get like a lot of code completion and help. And that was kind of the idea. So I know, JP, you prepared something to share, because JP has been like such a huge champion as part of this project. And we even have a blog post that mostly JP wrote, let's face it, that basically talks about this new client. So we are at the stage where we would like to get your feedback, etc. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. How about we put the blog post up, and then we can go from there. So this only went up. This is like hot off the presses of yesterday. So you can find it by going to our website and clicking on the blog link on the top nav bar. Really encourage you to check it out. Obviously, there's a lot of other really amazing content there as well, but just read this one first. But so this one's like I wrote this over the last couple of days, and I had a lot of fun writing it, right? And it was for a couple of reasons. I like writing, that's one, but also because the project was so much fun, and it was really gratifying in terms of how usable the client became, or sorry, how much more usable the client became along the course of this project. So when I was putting together these code examples and whatever, I was like, oh, this really is noticeably, I think, a huge improvement to the sort of developer experience, right? So I won't go through a lot of detail here, but there's a couple of things I do want to talk about. One is what the key changes are, right? So in terms of what we were going for, like one is that we're calling this internally the collections API, which is because we focused on changing this kind of unit of how you interact with your data, so that before you were kind of dealing with the client, so that you're dealing with your whole Weaviate instance in through the client object. But now what we've done is centered a lot of the interactions and API around each collection. And by collection, I mean the thing that we quite often call a class, which is a set of Weaviate objects, but that leads to sort of confusion in nomenclature and whatever. So calling that a collection. But yeah, so I'll show a demo to see exactly what this means. And the other is object typing, right? So a lot of us use IDEs. That's not, just the plain text editor. And this really provides with a lot of sort of quality of life improvements with type hints and auto completions and so on, which you'll see throughout the kind of code demo that I'll put that it will go through. The other thing that you won't visibly see in the live coding is the performance improvements, right? And that's changing from our kind of GraphQL based backend to gRPC. And I won't go through a lot of the details here, but basically that really improves how the data gets transmitted from the client to the server. And there's a couple of reasons why that's faster, but basically it's less data and it's less processing required, right? So that's basically the reason for it. So we definitely encourage you to check it out by reading the blog post and also going to this page, which is linked here, called Experimental Client. So let's have a look there. And that's basically a user guide. So we don't have a fully featured, we haven't just overhauled our documentation to get rid of all the documentation in relation to the old client. But if you want to try the new client, this is where you can get started. Here's a bit of an overview, but this is more of a set of instructions and examples so you can get started. So having said that, let's get into a little bit of live coding and see how well or poorly I do. So how about, and I can't share two screens at once. So I'm going to stop sharing this and I have to represent my...
Which opens up the question, how many screens do you have, JP?
Sorry, I misspoke. I meant I can't seem to share multiple apps in one go, because then Sebastian could have very seamlessly switched over, but I can do that. So what I've done is that we have a bunch of code from the quick start, right? So hopefully if you've used Weaviate before, you might have come across our quick start guide. And these are like code snippets from the quick start. What I thought we could do today in the short demo is to go through the quick start and I can just recreate bits of it with the new code and show you what that looks like, right? So this is just kind of like the housekeeping of how do you connect to the client. There's one big change because we're importing all of these, making use of all these custom Python classes. You can import them as a whole under this Weaviate classes submodule. And use them. If that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you'll see that in 2 seconds. So let's get started. So we've got a code chunk like this, where you would create a class or a collection, right? And the challenge with this is that it's untyped dictionary or JSON, depending on what nomenclature you speak, right? So you have to remember that this thing is called a vectorizer. You have a config key called module config, and so on and so forth. With the new client, it looks like this. So you go client collection dot create. Now, if I use this function, I start to get these hints on the overlay. So I can say, what is my collection called? Well, it's question. And let's configure the vectorizer, right? So now I can go, okay, so if I start typing vectorizer, I get this the top pop-up doesn't come up on the screen share. Okay, well, just take my word for it. I'm getting an auto-completion pop-up that I can select from called vectorizer config. So that's I've not typed that. I'll use autocomplete. And then I can start typing with autocomplete, which I assure you exists, even though it's not showing up on the screen share. I'll talk to Tim Apple about that. And config factory vectorizer dot OpenAI. Now, to write this line, even though this line is longer, I think I've typed about 7 characters and then auto-completed the rest of it, right? And I can do the same thing with the generative config. So I can go GE tab generative config, WVC config factory. So I'm typing CO tab autocomplete. generative.openai. So you can see here that the room for making mistakes is drastically smaller because I'm getting all these type hints and so on. And then
what I also like about it, by the way, like JP, so if you have like the text-to-vec OpenAI right now, like you go like, hey, I just want default settings with OpenAI. But if you wanted to choose like a different model or something, you could just like provide that inside, right? Like, so inside the braces,
these,
like you could just do
parameters.
model equals, and then like you super quick, like say like, hey, these are the available options, right? This is what I can do. And that makes it like super readable and like more intuitive for all of you to discover what is even possible.
Definitely. I was going to say you get this tooltip if you move your mouse over the OpenAI function. And of course, that's not showing up on the screen share either. But you do get all the parameter names and the doc strings and all of that over here as well, which is really, really handy. I'll make a video for it later for sure. Cool. And in terms of importing data, it's all the same. It's like similarly more convenient. I can say data, insert many, and just put the JSON objects here, right? So I would go create this object for the in. So this is all I would need to do the same job that the above block of code is doing. Queries is also really simple. Now, if I can say questions dot query dot, what am I doing? Near text. Again, this command is basically the same thing as what's happening up here. And that's for a couple of reasons. These parameters that we used to have to specify to say, hey, I want these columns or properties back from the server. Now these get returned by default. You can still specify them if you want to minimize how much data you fetch, but this makes it like really easy to get started, to play with, and so on. And the nice thing, this is also really cool, is doing things like generative search, right? So doing what's called retrieval augmented generation or generative search. Just converting that earlier query into a RAG query means you have to all you have to do is swap out the submodule to generate from query. And then I'll break these up into separate lines and say, what am I doing? Group task equals, let's copy that line here. So again, this is now the same thing as what's above. And also even just dealing with the response object, it was a fairly deeply nested JSON object in the past. So you'd have to use syntax like this to dig into data, get, question, blah, blah, blah. But now all you would have to do is, I have to actually capture the response into an object. So response, oh my goodness, response.
You get no typing help with variable names, huh?
Not yet. I should turn Copilot back on. So this is all you'd have to do. So this, well, I guess I have to have a print function. It's the exact same thing as this.
Really
so how cool
cool.
is that?
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is really nice. I personally really like it, and I've been having a lot of fun. Just
you do have to rewrite all the docs, right?
Dave's not here, right? I'll get Dave to do it.
But it'll be one of those, like you do a massive rewrite and it was like, why is there like 1,000 lines of code less,
That's
like,
so cool.
Yeah. But no, honestly, I think the other thing worth showing as well, JP, is like, because you showed how to get generated from a response, but also like the query values itself, it's also way, way shorter. Because I think, what is it, like response dot objects now?
Objects. This is how you would get the actual set of objects. And then what comes back is a list. So you won't get type hints at this point. Maybe Yeah. So I can say object is that, and then I can do things like object dot. Oh, you do get type ins. Fantastic. So properties, right, is how you would get access to properties like that. Object dot metadata dot UUID is how you
So
get access to the UUID.
let's try a question we get a lot. Like, let's count all the objects.
So that's
too much coding on the fly.
you picked the one query type that's not yet implemented, because that's an aggregate query, which is like aggregate sets of queries, which is not implemented. So you'll have to still do it the old way. But the what's currently now the get queries are implemented. So that's what these are. So response dot query. Oh my goodness. Questions dot query. So this would be the GraphQL get. We've got questions dot generative, which are like GraphQL get with generative, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have questions dot data, which is your CRUD operations. I guess it's really CUD because it's create, update, delete. And we have questions dot group by. And I personally really like the group by improvements, because the GraphQL query for this is literally like 12 to 15 lines long. And this query, when I tried it, I sent a message to Tommy and Dirk yesterday and said, this is amazing, because it's now like 4 lines of code to perform these functions. So I personally love it, obviously, but we want to get your feedback, and we've been doing internal user testing that's been really, really valuable. So Duda, you've done it, and we got really good feedback from you at an early stage. Sebastian, you've done it, and just kind of pretending you don't know all the things as you've been being part of the development cycle. But we really want to hear from you, the audience, right? So we put up a post in the community forum, the community Slack, talking about it. I'll post more demos, but please, if you can, read through the blog and try it out using that experimental client page. And there's a feedback form that we've linked to. So we would love to hear from you. If you have we've also got a form, or I guess text box in there for your email or contact, which is entirely optional. But if you don't mind being contacted about your feedback, maybe we'll contact you just to get some more information, or maybe even have a one-on-one session. But yeah, we're really excited about it. Like, I'm super excited about it, and we'll love to see where this goes. And I don't know exactly when it's going to be rolled out, because I had that question even earlier today from Shkri, who was like really excited. But I think sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So there's one example you didn't show that I was super passionate about, because I just threw it early days as an idea, and I know you know what I'm talking about, but that's the iterator. So that was like one of the big challenges, and I literally was helping somebody towards the end of last week via email of how to, like, literally the task of like, how do I go through all of my data? And that at the moment, the example that we have, it's like 20, 30 lines of code where you can use the fetch API. We made it like with this client silly easy.
I can show that just really quickly. So right now you have to use what we internally call the cursor API, right?
Cursor API, not fetch API.
Projects. And this is kind of what the vector with limit. Nope, that's not right. Let's see. So you need with after cursor. Okay. It basically looks like that. Sorry, the code example is broken down into functions, which is Sebastian. This is exactly what you're talking about earlier today.
It's a mess. It's so hard to wrap your head around the original approach, right?
But this is kind of what it looks like. You have to get the cursor, you have to get the batch size, and whatever. With the new client, it just kind of looks like this. So hang on, let me just make sure I get the syntax right. Yeah, it's just so But basically, I think it overloads the Python iterator, or maybe just like it's set up in the class too, so you can use the built-in Python iterator to do this. So if you want to just get the all objects out, you can just go questions, and I would just use a list comprehension Q for Q in blah. Right. This is all you would have to do to get literally all the objects out this way. And you can choose within this syntax what parameters you want to get out. So you can specify here, like the return metadata is, metadata query, UID equals true, vector equals true. So if you want to get just the ID and the vector out for all your objects, this is all you would have to do. So yeah, this is fantastic too, because Marion was asking about it earlier today too, that she gets this question for people who perhaps don't have access to the backup feature because it's not set up, whatever, and want to manually export objects, or if you want to migrate your database, or just even want to. I had a question about someone who wanted to validate their data against some other secondary database or something. This is going to be such a boon for just simplifying your code base.
Yeah, I think this is an approach of like, let's say if you have like a small data set, because of course, if you have 10 million objects, you don't want to put all of them in one array. Yeah. But what you can also do with the iterator, you could just straight up use the for loop, right? Yeah. And then like exactly like this, and then below you could just have your code, right? So in here, you go run one by one, and then the iterator will fetch a bunch of objects each time, and then give them to you. Yeah, it's just like, this used to be several lines of code. Now it's like a 2-liner. Like, hey, that is so nice and clean,
and it's so very readable too, which I like. And you get all the tool, like I guess I got the tooltips. You guys didn't with the screen share problems, but also if you're using Jupyter, you can run a function with question mark to get the doc strings, which you couldn't do before with the builder pattern. So yeah, so far it's been very positive internally. But I'm sure it's not perfect, right? We'll probably run into some cases where some people are like, oh, this doesn't quite work for me, and we really want to know if that's the case, right? Of course, we think it's great, but that's why your feedback would be really, really useful.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. And like, if you just scroll back to the beginning a little bit, the one thing that is always worth remembering, where you have where you create that questions object, in case like you got lost on that part, the line 41. So like the usual story is like, hey, I want to get a collection. So that question is like the name of the collection. And then basically you always work with that object. So if you had like a separate collection called articles, you could do the same thing, right? Like you just say articles equals client.collection.get articles, and then all the operations will then happen on that collection, right? So you don't have to every single time do that. And there's loads of other things, like there's support around like creating references and all this. Like there's so much. We could literally spend 2 hours talking about just that, but definitely worth checking out the article. Yeah,
we can definitely see you're amazed.
That's a good segue, Sebastian, though, because next Thursday I will spend an hour talking about it on an online workshop.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Like, I think it's a great reminder for anyone that if you go like onto our website under developers workshops, we always share like the intro workshops and different types of workshops. So JP shared there's a workshop on the 5th of October. So if you'd like to participate and kind of like learn more about this new Python client, whether you want to learn more by us guiding you through it or by providing us some feedback and everything, we'll definitely dive deeper into like different parts of it. So I see JP is sharing it. Yeah, so that's the page. If you could just quickly show how to get to workshops from the
So if developers. You're on the homepage or wherever, you can go under developers, and on the pull down menu you can click on workshops. And it's dynamically loaded. So after the Weaviate Air, after our episode's finished, that'll disappear from the list, And the next workshop would be the intro workshop with Duda. That's tomorrow. And Zen's got one next week, and we've got the collections workshop next Thursday.
Perfect. All right. So thanks for this presentation, JP. This was awesome. Really super excited about hearing feedback from the community. It's going to be great. So let's do a quick one around the Hacktoberfest. I know, JP, you are involved with this. And we have some
very little bit. So the dev growth team's been doing amazing work organizing Hacktoberfest. I'm more just kind of helping out here and there in a tiny way. Leonie's done amazing work with this. So if I can share my screen again, Sebastian, the exact same window. So what she's done so far, which is really cool, is to refresh our example use cases and demos page. You can find that by going into the nav bar, which is, by the way, now collapsible. Go on the more resources, example use cases, and demos here. And what you'll see is that we have all these use cases with demos that are marked with pumpkin signs. So during the course of October, we'll have these projects that we want to basically refresh, right? So these are kind of all the Weaviate demos and what have you, which could do is a little bit of love, a little bit of touch up and refreshing, or improvements. So we've marked these with pumpkins, and they can be any number of things. They can be code contributions, but also things like, hey, if you're a tech writer, maybe you want to contribute to the README or the contributor guide. Maybe you want to make some material around it with video demos. Maybe you're a JavaScript person and there's a Python demo, so you're going to port it to to JavaScript or Go or whatever. So we want to produce these small tasks that are bite-sized. And Richard, you mentioned this, right? You're a student, you got stuff on. You can't be building a demo for 3 weeks full time. But there's these small parts of a project that you can contribute to, engage with us, and learn and make new friends and whatever. So there'll be more detail coming up. I believe Leon is working on a blog post, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And just have fun, right?
What would be really cool if someone took one of those projects and used the new client, rewrite with the new client. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. I'd highly encourage that even.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Oh, I should have asked Richard, what do you think of the new client? Because when you work on the hackathon, you use our old client, of course, right? But I guess the new client, would that help you?
Yeah, I guess that it's looks much better, very cool for the hackathon use case, because I remember when it had 24 hours left until the final submission, and I'm trying to write something there, maybe some very basic demo, but the new clients would have helped me a lot. So with these much shorter syntax. Yeah, about the Hacktoberfest, very cool idea, I believe. So yeah, that's something very interesting to try out.
We'd love to have you back, in some capacity, right? Come and check out the projects and see what you might want to work on in between doing assignments and doing all the university things. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I think hopefully we get lots of different people from diverse backgrounds and whatever else, because there's different tasks kind of hopefully for lots of different people, right? So
yeah, that's cool.
Excellent. All right. Cool. So in this case, Duda is going to be at the Latinoware, right? Hey, Duda, what's this conference about? Where is it? Why should anyone join, and etc.?
Oh, sure. Latinoware is an event that happens here in South America. It happens in Foz do Iguaçu in Paraná state. Foz do Iguaçu is in the border of Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. And this is considered the most important open source event here in the South America. We usually have something around 5,000 attendees from all around South America. It's very, very important event, and it's very community oriented. If you ever have been to FOSDEM, it's similar to FOSDEM, but on a not that big of a scale as FOSDEM, but it's a very, very important event. And I'm going to be there. I participate on this event for the last 10 years already. And this year I'll be there, not only talking about Weaviate, but also doing a workshop. So if you want, all the talks are also online, but they are in Portuguese. The majority of them are in Portuguese and Spanish. But if you want to try yourself with Portuguese, please feel free to do that. And also I'm going to be talking about not related to Weaviate, but also related to Weaviate, which is Google Summer of Code. So I'm going to have 3 very nice activities there for the 3 days. It will happen at 18 through 20 of October. So it's a 3 days conference, and it's very intense. And that's not only about open source, like open source software, but also open hardware. You have like people doing designing, and it's a huge event with a lot of different activities that have a place for everybody. So join us, and if you want to go there, we are going to be there. So feel free to come.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
we have the website here that we can. I will share here on the YouTube link. So it's Latinoware.org. So it's very easy to join.
Are the talks recorded? So you might have mentioned this.
Yes. We have there's on YouTube. We have a channel with all the talks recorded, so you can try to follow that. Activate maybe the transcription and follow that.
Awesome.
I just saw the other day. I saw on LinkedIn this amazing AI translator where it just translates your lip synchronization and everything, and translates what you say into a different language. Pretty cool. You should use it.
Nice. Yeah, we could test it out because we all speak perfect Portuguese here, right?
I do.
Years of listening to Bossa Nova prepared me for this conference.
Oh, good.
Well, maybe the vocabulary doesn't cover it, but that's fine. And speaking of meeting us in different places, now it's time. Maybe Marion, you're involved in like kicking off like some of our meetup activities, and
Exactly.
and I know you're super passionate about it.
You share my screen then.
Done.
Woohoo! So cycling, we talked a lot about community contributions and also about the workshops. So we have been getting more and more questions when we can meet in real life, and we picked up that feedback. So, oh, that's interesting. We do have a couple of things going on. They are not all online yet, but that is like a sneak peek for the Python client. Now it's for the community event. So what's coming up? We do have a meetup in New York coming up with Zen talking about multimodality. So watch out.
There.
And Sebastian is going to be there too. So watch out our website. On the bottom of it, you do find our meetups. We do have a workshop coming up in New York as well the next day, where you can actually get your hands on. In November, we are going to be in Berlin together with our friends from Ivan, again, like in London. Who knows? We have been in London with Ivan as well. And in December, we are going to be in Berlin with the MLOps community. And there's much, much more in the cooking that is just not yet so final that I would like to share it. But keep your eyes on our website. We are going to announce it on LinkedIn and especially in our meetup groups. So
cool.
I'm looking forward to see you.
Yay. Super exciting. Yeah, because we already talked about we don't have dates yet for those places, but yeah, we're talking about doing something in London, probably Amsterdam. We'll do something in San Francisco. There's actually something happening in San Francisco about now anyway. We'll be everywhere. Yeah, right now, right? So shout out to Philip and Erica and Connor and the team that are there, and Adam. That's why they're not in this in Weaviate Air today, because they're hustling and bustling somewhere else as well. So it's
Exactly.
definitely gonna be a lot happening. So we can't
Oh,
wait
in
to
San
see
Francisco, there's one going on October 2nd. I actually forgot about that.
There you
In San
go.
Francisco, there's one in October 2nd. The meetup is Haystack. Definitely worth
Yeah.
joining. And it's on our meetup groups. So again, Weaviate.io, and then on the bottom you find our meetup groups.
Yeah, and that'll be with Tuana, and Tuana is such a great person as well. So that'll be great. Yeah, I'm so jealous of anyone that's going to be there for that. It's gonna be awesome. Perfect. And then the final segment is again going back to Duda, going through some community questions. So we have some questions that are like pop up here and there, and we thought like, hey, maybe we could just have like little conversation about them and then help you all out to kind of understand in case you also wondered about these things. So Duda, the first question that you nominated is, what is the impact of the tokenization setting for a data property? What can
Yes,
we
that's
tell
right. And
everyone about it?
also a nice remembering that if you have any questions on your journey to learn about Weaviate, you can join us on our forum. You can go to the Weaviate website and you can have their forums. And also we also have our Slack. We are trying to move all the questions to the forum because that is indexable. So whatever the content that we create on the forum, it stays there for other users to search and to help themselves. But we have seen some questions, and we'll be trying to bring those questions here and try to shed some light on it. So the idea is that sometimes people will say, hey, I have a query here. I'm searching for something and I'm getting some mixed results. And that might be because of the tokenization setting for your data property. So let me share. And then we have, because the property, you can set different tokenization properties for your property, right? So should I share my screen here just a little bit?
Yeah, that'll be great.
Okay.
And while Dude is doing that, I guess that probably relates to like not a vector search, right? So tokenization, there's like two types of different indexes that get built with data in Weaviate. One is a vector index for similarity searching, and then the other is an inverted index, which a lot of people are probably familiar with from kind of more traditional databases. And this, I think, relates to the inverted index, right, Duda?
Yes, that's right. Even though you might confuse the tokenization with the vectorization and all that, but this is mostly for the hybrid or BM25 search. So what happens is that by default, we have the word as the tokenization, right? Which means that it's going to index each word by itself, but you have different settings here. And then the idea is that you need to change that according to what you expect as a result, right? So bear in mind that you can change. There's one more knob that you can have in Weaviate to change to your specification. So before thinking that it's not working properly when you're searching for you doing some queries, you need to be aware of these tokenization parameters that it can influentiate in your queries. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
So should we jump in a second question?
Yeah, we do have some questions that a lot of people are always asking how we can, because there's so much thing that you can do with Weaviate, right? You can not only with text, but audio and video and all that together. And then you can throw some generative contents on top of that. And then it gets really crazy. It gets a lot of possibilities. And a lot of time people are asking what we can do, where we can see some examples on what we can do with Weaviate, right? And we do have a lot of examples. Some of them are on the same place, but some of them are elsewhere. The first one that I want to show is that we have some really nice recipes that we are still growing. There is still some other examples that we can show. So if you go to our repository and search for recipes, we're going to have there generative search, hybrid search, integrations, multi-tenancy, and all of them. Right now, it does not have one for TypeScript, but we are working on that. So soon we're going to have the same examples with the same data and everything together for Python and also for TypeScript. Another set of good examples that we have that you probably saw there on the that's also available for the Hacktoberfest is that we have a Weaviate examples, and these we have very nice, very interesting examples that we have done. And our community have contributed. So, for example, one that I really like is this attendance system example, which you can have. I think there's some screenshots here. So basically, you can have a screenshot, and then you can have the people that is previously created on this screenshot, and you can have like an attendance. Like you can consider that you can take a picture of your class and then map who is on that picture, and like that's a very nice example. We have here some players. And another example that I'm really excited is the audio gen classification, which is basically using the audio in order to identify the class with some other previously examples. So all of them are registered here. Is very easy. If you have any troubles playing around with those, again, come to our forums. We are there to help you. Another one that we have is a different organization altogether. We have Weaviate tutorials. And inside this organization, we have a lot of repositories with different parts of our of codes and examples on how you can. Those users are some like for example IntroShop or how to ingest PDFs with unstructured. So there's a different set of repositories there. And the last two that I would like to show is Health Search, and this is a whole project that we have that was created from our growth team. So that's a very interesting that it's using generative search to create reviews based on the reviews of the users. So it's a very real world example on how to use Weaviate, which is very, very fine, very, very fun to use and very nicely done. And the last one is Verba, which we are developing, which is very interesting, that you can throw a lot of contents to there, and then you can search for those contents and see where they came from, where the answer is coming from. And this is a very a lot of people that comes to Weaviate, they want to create this kind of solution at first. Like it's a very interesting solution. So here's a very nice way on how to do that. And all of those examples are there. And again, if you have any troubles playing around with that, come to us. We are here to help, and we're going to be there on the forums, on the Slack, on the email, on the meetups, on every place, trying to help you on your journey. And that's it for those examples.
Excellent. Thank you for this. And I think this could be a new tradition that we could always end up with, like maybe a couple of questions from the community, and then provide a bit of an insight. And we'll definitely be looking for any questions from like maybe on our Slack, etc. Like if you like us to answer, like a conversational style, this is definitely the way. So this gets us to the end of this Weaviate Air. It's been a pleasure. It's been great. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. Whether you watch with us live the show, or whether you're watching it like a few hours or days after we recorded it, definitely thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. If not for you, we wouldn't be doing it, right? So if you enjoyed this video or any part, especially if you loved Richard's demo, give us a like. That would definitely help us out. Please subscribe to the channel. I'll say it again, because then you will not miss out the next Weaviate Air. We do them every month. So that's it for me. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Vasily says bye.
Bye, Vasily.
Oh. Wait, I thought I pressed and